Well, greetings, and I bid you welcome from Bethany United Church of Christ in Claremont, North Carolina, where no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Today on this Epiphany Sunday, you'll see that our altar looks a little bit different today, as it is holding a portion of our collections throughout the month of December for our neighbors in need to benefit one of the local food pantries here in the region. And so as we celebrate the gifts that the Magi brought, today we're also aware of the gifts that we bring and the gifts that we get to share with one another. But that's not so much what I want to talk about today. Today, as we reflect on this story of the Magi, yes, they brought their gifts, and that's a beautiful lesson in and of itself, right? But they also followed signs. And I want to talk a little bit about that with you all today. You know, I'm curious if you've ever had a moment where you've thought to yourself, gosh, if only I had a sign. If only I had, say, a star that would lead me to the place I'm supposed to go. Or if only I had a dream that told me exactly what my next step should be. Then I can journey forward assured that I'm doing the right thing. If only I had a sign. Can you relate to that question, to that hope in any way? I know I can. You know, whether it's at a big life-changing decision moment in life or simply being at a place that feels a little bit stuck. We can all have this desire to seek some validation that what we're doing is a right, a good, a holy thing. And to me, that feels like a very human thing to do, to seek that sort of guidance, to feel reassured, to feel a sense of clarity in our next step, to trust that we are doing the right thing. And perhaps you've had experiences where you've had a sign appear to you. You've had a moment of like the Magi did, of being reassured, of knowing this is what I'm supposed to do. And those moments are precious. They really are. Yet, what about the moments when signs don't seem as clear? What about the moments when we question if what we just experienced was in fact a sign or maybe just a mere coincidence? What do we do when we're not quite reassured, when we're not quite clear, when we're not feeling as secure as we would hope we would in taking the next step? You know, whenever I think about signs, I can't help but reflect on an experience I had when I was in college. The Christian Fellowship group on our college campus was sponsoring a trip to go to Urbana, which is a world missions conference of mostly college-age, young adult age folks who are there to learn together, to worship together, to be inspired together, to commit to the work of justice in the world, to do that mission, to do that good work out in the world together. And that particular year, the gathering was in St. Louis, and it was the week between Christmas and New Year. I think that might be when they always hold it. And one of my friends was planning to go, and he asked if I would go along, and I said sure. So a little while later, we were on a bus heading to St. Louis. There were, I think, 6 of us total from the school. And there was so much that we did there, wonderful speakers, a lot of inspiration, no doubt. But of course, as we do it any other day, we also had to eat, right? That's part of the human existence, right? The need of food. And as a group, we decided we needed to be economical about this. We were college kids, after all, didn't have a whole lot of extra income lying around. So we had a continental breakfast that was part of our hotel stay, so that was covered. Dinner was part of the registration fee, so that was covered. But we needed to do something for lunch. And as a group, we decided that instead of going out for lunch every day, that we would pool some money and get bread, sandwich fixing, snacks, stuff like that, and we'd make our own lunches throughout the week. And this proved to work out great. It was so affordable in the grand scheme of things. Well, as the conference was coming to a close, we had gone through our week and we realized that we still had some food left over, food that we wouldn't finish before we went and couldn't really take with us on the bus ride back home. So we decided that we would take some of what we've been learning about that week and we'd put our faith into action. We'd do something with these gifts that we had and we'd help feed someone else. So we made up extra sandwiches, we bagged extra snacks, and we headed out onto the streets of St. Louis to see with whom we might share our lunch. And as we went out with a bag of food in one hand and that desire to love our neighbors held within our hearts, we started our journey. But none of us were familiar with St. Louis. We didn't really know where we were going. And after walking for a bit up the road, we still hadn't found anybody. And we stopped at an intersection. And as I recall it, there was sort of a moment of being stuck there. This question of, well, where do we go? Do we go left? Do we go right? Do we continue straight? Maybe there was even a part of us that was saying, do we turn around? Do we give up on what we were planning to do? And that's when I looked up. And I saw a sign before me. It was as clear as day. It was a road sign that said one way, and it pointed off in the direction off to the left. And I said to the group, let's go left. The sign says, let's go left, let's go left. And so we did. And after journeying a little while further, we found a couple who had been experiencing homelessness for some time. We shared lunch with them. We gave them the extra food that we had left over after. They shared their story. We shared a beautiful moment together. And under that overpass by the side of that road, there was a holy moment shared. Now, was that one-way street sign a sign from God? The cynical part of me says, no, it was not a sign from God. It was a sign by the St. Louis Traffic Authority. There's also the rational part of me that was like, I don't think it was a sign. It was just sort of a coincidence that we happened to be at a one-way road. And yet there's another part of me that can't help but think how that moment and how that sign still helped us move forward, how it still helped us move toward our mission of feeding our hungry neighbors, how it helped us move from that place of being stuck, of not knowing where to go, or even that moment of perhaps saying we should turn around and go back to the conference. It kept us moving toward our goal of sharing with those around us. And in that way, I do believe it was a sign, in that it helped us keep moving toward the good we were hoping to create in the world. You know, as we reflect on the story of the Magi today, we encounter, of course, several signs for them. And from our vantage point, especially looking back on the story and how it's written, those signs seem very clear, don't they? But I can't help but wonder if the Magi had moments of questioning the clarity. You know, these Magi, these astrologers who read divine messages in the stars, you know, when they first saw the star, were they convinced 100% that this was the message that they were waiting for? Or did they ask themselves, I think it is, but is it possible we didn't read it quite right, or that we didn't see it quite correctly? Maybe. But whether they did or didn't, they still set out seeking hope as they searched for Jesus. And after they met, after the Magi met with Herod and they continued on, that same star, we're told, appears again. Were they convinced that it was, in fact, the exact same star? How could you be so certain that it's the exact same star? But whether they did or didn't, they knew they had to head toward Bethlehem. The star was pointing that way too. So they journeyed on, again looking for light, trusting that goodness was coming. They kept moving. And then, of course, after they have their visit, after they give their gifts, they have a dream that tells them to not go back to Herod, but to go home another way. And again, from our vantage point, we can trust that dream as being divinely inspired because we know that Herod's motives were not pure, right? His intent was never to go and honor Jesus, but to seek his destruction and to do all that he could to preserve his own power. That's what he was about. So it seems like a clear sign to us. But when the Magi woke that morning, do you think they asked, is that in fact a sign? Is it my subconscious doing something? Is it my brain just processing what's going on around me? And yet either way, they followed this sign because they chose the path that they were sure would not lead to destruction. They chose the path that they were sure would not lead to them aiding in the destruction of another. And so they went home by another road. As the Magi followed these different signs, whether they were soundly convinced of their divine origin from the beginning or not, they chose to seek light and life above all else. They chose to seek hope, and they chose to not support, not even risk supporting, the powers of evil. And in that way, they were doing exactly what they were supposed to do. Beloved people of God, may we do the same. When we are faced with decisions in our lives or as a church community, especially when we're longing for that sign about what to do, or those moments when we might feel stuck and we don't know exactly what to do next, may we trust that if something is leading us toward light and goodness and mercy and grace as the star led the Magi to the light of the world, well then, that is worth following. If there's a sign that seems to be pointing us toward that which is life-giving and resisting destructive motives, like the dream that the Magi had, well, that too is worth following. And if it's something that helps us get unstuck and keeps us moving toward our goal of loving our neighbors, of being the church, like a one-way street sign did in St. Louis for my friends and I, well, then that is worth following. So what do we do when we're not quite reassured, when we're not quite clear, or we're not feeling secure in what comes next? Let us keep following. Let us keep following light and life and love, and let us keep doing some good in our world. So be it, and may it be so. Amen.